up in a newscast. North Korea launched a ballistic missile and fired artillery rounds into maritime buffer zones. The provocation came after more than 10 of the regime's warplanes flew close to the inter-Korean border. South Korea has put 15 North Korean individuals and 16 institutions on its blacklist. The first unilateral sanctions against Pyongyang in nearly 5 years is in response to evolving nuclear missile threats, highlighted by recent provocations. America's consumer price index rose 8.2% on-year in September. The so-called core CPI, which excludes food and energy, jumped 6.6%, the highest level since 1982. Hello, we'll be wrapping up the week well. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. Just a few hours ago, North Korea fired artillery shots off its east and west coast despite warnings from Seoul urging the regime to halt such provocations. Our defense correspondent Bae Eun-ji is standing by on the line with the latest. Eun-ji, do fill us in.
Well, Daniel, from 5 p.m., North Korea fired around 80 rounds of artillery shots toward waters off its east coast. About 20 minutes after that, the sound of artillery fire was heard about 200 times near the northwest coast. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the shells landed in eastern and western maritime buffer zones, north of the northern limit line. The buffer zones are boundaries created to further relax military tensions along the border area. The South Korean military said this is a clear violation of the Inter-Korean Military Tension Reduction Agreement and strongly urged the regime to immediately stop its provocative actions. It also said it's closely monitoring the situation with the U.S. and is maintaining strong defense readiness in case of an emergency situation.
And this latest move by the regime comes less than a day after multiple provocations were conducted overnight. It appears to be ignoring South Korea's warnings.
That's right. North Korea has fired a total of around 170 rounds of artillery shots in the early hours of Friday as well. That also landed in maritime buffer zones. They also fired a short-range ballistic missile at about 2 a.m. And for 2 hours from 10:30 p.m. on Thursday, presumably around 10 or so North Korean warplanes were spotted flying close to the inter-Korean border, crossing the tactical action line. This is something that's not happened for the past 5 years. In response to these actions, South Korea issued a warning.
Our military is sending a clear warning to North Korea for violating the September 19th military agreement and escalating tensions on the Korean Peninsula, and we strongly urge the regime to immediately put a halt to these actions.
Seoul State has said it will hold an annual defense drill for 12 days starting next Monday that will involve field training to strengthen its operational capabilities under various scenarios for North Korean threats. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Eun-ji, thank you for those updates. President Yoon Suk-yeol dismissed doubts raised about the effectiveness of the nation's three-axis defense system. Despite the recent provocation by the regime, he insists it's still valid as a means of deterrence.
삼축 체계는 유효한 방어 체계입니다. 대량 응징 보복이라고 하는 삼축 체계의 마지막 단계도 사전에 전쟁을 결정하는 데 필요한 상당한 심리적 사회적 억제 수단이 됩니다.
The system consists of the Korea Massive Punishment and Retaliation, a plan to incapacitate the North Korean leadership in a major conflict, along with the Kill Chain Preemptive Strike Platform and the Korea Air and Missile Defense System. Regarding Pyongyang's firing of artillery within the maritime buffer zone, Yoon called it a violation of the 2018 military agreement. The top office will mull whether to keep the agreement based on North Korea's actions. The nation's top nuke envoy condemned North Korea's latest military provocations as actions that escalate tensions. During phone meetings held separately with his American and Japanese counterparts, both called the actions illegal, saying they violate UNSC resolutions and threaten peace and stability not only on the peninsula but in the region and the international community as a whole. Kim Gun emphasized firing of artillery into the maritime buffer zones between the two Koreas was a clear violation of the 2018 military agreement. The trial once again demanded the regime immediately cease all provocations and return to dialogue. In response to North Korea's latest string of provocations, including numerous missile launches and the simulated use of tactical nukes, South Korea has imposed unilateral sanctions on dozens of North Korean individuals and institutions. This is the first such move from Seoul since 2017. Kim Da-mi tells us more.
For the first time in 5 years, Seoul on Friday slapped fresh sanctions on North Korean individuals and institutions related to the regime's nuclear and missile programs. The new blacklist will apply to 15 North Korean individuals for their roles in procuring funds and equipment for the regime's weapons of mass destruction and missile development. 16 North Korean institutions have also engaged in evading UN Security Council sanctions. That means prior permission from the Financial Services Commission and the chief of the Bank of Korea will be required to conduct foreign exchange or financial transactions with those who are sanctioned. Seoul has levied 5 rounds of independent sanctions on Pyongyang since 2015. But inter-Korean interactions, including trade, have already been at an almost complete standstill due to Seoul's existing measures against Pyongyang. One expert says the latest sanctions are rather symbolic of the Yoon administration's determination to deal sternly with Pyongyang's provocations through diplomatic pressure.
It's meaningful that South Korea is laying out a justification for imposing more sanctions and punishments in the future.
The targets of the new sanctions are already under a U.S. blacklist. But with China and Russia's strong opposition to imposing UN sanctions on the North, Seoul plans to strengthen cooperation with its allies through the adoption and strengthening of shared sanctions. An official from South Korea's foreign ministry made clear Friday's sanctions will not be all, hinting at additional sanctions on the regime like blocking cryptocurrency transactions if the North continues to escalate its provocations. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Elsewhere around the world, the counter-terrorist operation regime has been declared in Belarus. It's capable of responding to provocations from neighboring countries, mounting fears the closest ally to Russia may enter the war in Ukraine. In an interview with Izvestia, the country's foreign minister said the decision came amid concerns over possible provocations on Belarusian territory by some neighboring states. Its security forces will have broader powers, such as being able to detain suspects to verify identity, wiretapping, controlling all communication, and the unimpeded entry of agents on any premises. However, according to Reuters, neither the ministry nor the press office for the Belarusian president has confirmed this. Malawi is asking the UN for more cholera vaccines amid fears of a rapid spread during rainy season. The country has been battling with the waterborne disease since it declared an outbreak in early March. So far, almost 4,500 contracted cholera and 120 people died. There has been a threefold increase in infections since August. 24 out of 20 districts have reported cases. Last week, the WHO called for international support to contain the virus in Malawi, saying the country is facing multiple public health emergencies. Consumer prices in the States rose in September by more than expected. Consumer inflation came to 8.2% year-on-year, and core inflation was at 6.6%. This makes it even more likely that the Fed will keep raising rates aggressively for a while, and also a problem for President Biden and his Democratic Party as they head into next month's congressional elections. Woo Soo-young reports.
America's Consumer Price Index rose 8.2% year-on-year in September, rising faster than economists had expected. It also marks a very small slowdown from the pace set in August. The so-called Core Consumer Price Index, which excludes food and energy, jumped 6.6% from a year ago in September. This is the highest level since 1982, according to data released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics on Thursday. It was also a hefty increase from the 6.3% recorded the month before. Shelter prices, which include mortgage payments, property taxes and other fees, led the way, accounting for nearly 1/3 of the average household spending. Transport services also saw a 1.9% jump last month, which was the largest one-month increase across core CPI components. Medical services followed with a 1% jump. The latest figures are set to turn the Fed's race to cool inflation into a marathon. Following the news, US President Joe Biden stressed that his utmost priority is fighting the war against inflation. Despite Thursday's CPI data, Biden claimed that inflation over the past 3 months had averaged at 2%, which he added was a drop from 11% in the previous quarter. Biden then added that economic plans introduced by his administration put the US in a stronger position than any major economy to take on this global challenge. 오수영, Arirang News.
South Korea recorded the largest on-year growth in employment figures led mainly by senior citizens. The rise in numbers compared to the month before slowed down again, though. The recovery in jobs is in jeopardy due to several factors. Choi Min-jung helps us look beyond the digits.
The number of people in employment in South Korea increased for the 19th straight month in September. According to Statistics Korea, more than 28.3 million people were in jobs last month, up 707,000 from the year before. This is the largest on-year increase for any September since 1999. The growth was mainly led by people aged 60 and above finding their way back into employment. There were more than 450,000 people in that age group employed, accounting for more than half of the total on-year gain. There was also an increase in the number of workers in their 20s, 30s, and 50s, but a decline for people in their 40s due to fewer construction jobs. Statistics Korea says the majority of construction workers come from that demographic. By industry, there were big jumps in manufacturing, healthcare, and hospitality, while the retail and finance sectors saw drops. Although the number of employed people increased in September, jobs growth slowed for the 4th consecutive month. Statistics Korea pointed at a range of uncertainties involving inflation, interest rates, and the global economy, and added that it is hard to predict how much longer the growth will continue. Meanwhile, South Korea's unemployment rate dropped to an all-time low for any September, to 2.4%. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Busan is getting ready for a free BTS concert on Saturday. According to city officials, most of the stage installations are complete at Busan Asiad Main Stadium. Titled Yet to Come in Busan, the concert will also be streamed live to audiences gathered at Busan Port and Haeundae Beach. Only those with tickets can enter the venues, but anyone can watch the screen performance at Haeundae Beach. The city will mobilize more police officers and firefighters to manage safety and control traffic. It has also established emergency medical centers in select areas. The government hopes the show will help Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. South Korea aims to be a leading player in the emerging metaverse industry. To find out more about related rapid developments and the latest trends, our Shin Yeon dropped by the nation's biggest metaverse festival.
Did you know there's a way for you to visit a different country in seconds, buy products without seeing them in real life, and change your physical features on a daily basis? It's all possible on the Metaverse, a digital universe where the virtual version of yourself can live a whole new life. South Korea aims to become a pioneer in this new universe. Earlier this year, the Ministry of Science and ICT pledged to provide financial support for metaverse tech engineers and companies, so that by 2026, the country is one of the top 5 global metaverse leaders.
Then just how much progress has South Korea made so far? You can check here at the country's biggest Metaverse Festival. Its organizers, like the Ministry of Science and ICT, has given out 9 Korea Metaverse Awards to the key players in this virtual world.
I was able to meet some of the top award winners and discuss the future of the metaverse industry.
The metaverse is bound to expand even further. There's growing demand among users familiarized with online platforms to make digital avatars of themselves. That's where virtual human companies like ours come in. I can't wait to see a mass of new content appear in this new virtual universe.
One type of content that caught the eye of officials was an interactive game showing the life of a multicultural teen living in Korea. The team of university students, dubbed Culture Knock, made this game content to raise awareness of the social stigma and difficulties children from multicultural households go through.
We thought the metaverse would be the perfect place to deliver our message. We wanted users to immerse themselves into the game and feel as if the character's life was their actual experience.
A range of industries are making their footprint in the metaverse. This year's Korea Metaverse Festival runs in Seoul until Saturday. 신예은, Arirang News.
Seoul Fashion Week is now on. A noticeable number of the local brands participating are showcasing sustainable designs. The use of eco-friendly fabric and materials is clearly growing these days. Kim Hyun-sung zooms in on this trend.
Sustainability is in vogue. Seoul Fashion Week kicked off on Tuesday, and over the 5-day-long fashion extravaganza, 33 Korean fashion brands are displaying their inspired looks for next year's spring and summer season. And several brands are showcasing their looks made with recycled materials. Korean brand Holy No. 7 presented their line that has a love theme. Some garments are made from thrifted wedding dresses.
I've heard that wedding dresses get thrown away after being worn about 4 times. We've upcycled those thrown away wedding dresses to create these showpieces.
According to the United Nations Environment Program, contemporary fashion accounts for 1/10 of the global carbon footprint. Fashion is also responsible for 1/5 of the global plastic production each year. And now more and more brands are doing what they can to lessen their environmental impact.
As a fashion designer, I felt like I was making a lot of waste while I was working. Even though there is still some way to go, I'm trying to contribute to zero waste and sustainable fashion one step at a time.
Dukan is another fashion brand that's gone green. The brand is a rising star in the Korean fashion scene. It's also debuted on the world's most prestigious fashion runways earlier this year, Paris Fashion Week. The brand impresses not only with its eye-grabbing designs, but also with its eco-friendly fabric.
If we melt 99 PET plastic bottles, we can turn that into 1 yard of fabric. Also, we use eco-friendly printing methods so that it doesn't pollute the water and air.
And it's not just them. Other K-fashion brands, including Teabag and Seongju, have hopped on board the sustainable movement. Witness from Seoul Fashion Week, creativity blooms in Korean fashion, not just in the designs, but also in the environmentally friendly materials. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
GenMZs, or those in their 20s to early 40s, are becoming a major trendsetter here in the nation. This generation is spearheading the charge in deciding what's hot and what's not when it comes to food items as well. Song Yoo-jin has the full story.
Wow, there are so many people here. It's a little past 9 on a Sunday morning. I'm out of capital Seoul, and as you can see behind me, a pack of people are already lined up in front of the store. What's this all about?
This wait-to-buy trend led by GenMZs born between the early 1980s to early 2000s is called ticketing in South Korea. Before, the term described getting tickets to a popular K-pop concert, but now it's also used when buying a product is as difficult or competitive. For example, buying yakgwa at the store will be coined as succeeding in yakketing, a combination of the words yakgwa and ticketing.
Finally, after more than an hour waiting, I have now these yakgwas in my hand, the Korean traditional dessert. Now, because there are too many people and this store is too popular, each person can only buy 2 packs of yakgwa. Now, to be honest, I'm not really that kind of person who waits in a line to buy these things, but now that I have these yakgwas in my hand, I feel that it's pretty rewarding.
My sister brought me here and I was surprised that there were so many people. It tastes different from the yakgwa I know, so I think it's worth a try.
We tried yakketing for almost 6 months, but we failed every time, so we came here today.
I think as long as the food is good, it's okay to put in my time and effort.
GenMZs are internet savvy, so they're well aware of and want what's trendy and high quality. And due to a sort of bandwagon effect, which is people following exactly what others are doing, they all want to get those goods. But the quantity is limited, so succeeding in buying them gives enormous pleasure despite waiting for a long time.
But it's not just yakgwa. There is fruit ticketing, where farmers sell a certain amount at a fixed time through online shopping malls. It only takes 2 to 3 minutes for the more well-known stores to sell out. Then, why is this trend so visible in food?
Food reflects the latest trends really well. When compared to clothes or shoes, it takes less time for producers to make and present the complete product to consumers. That's why this new ticketing trend can be spotted in food.
And with GenMZs sharing these products with their families and friends, ticketing is slowly becoming a culture for all. 송유진, Arirang News.
Staying with the topic of food, meal kits have emerged as a trend that continues to keep on growing and going strong. A government agency recently developed several unique items using seafood to help expand the consumption of fish caught in the nation's waters. Jo Sung-min tells us more.
Although this dish looks like a typical Korean-style pasta made with gochujang, the Korean chili pepper paste, with a closer look, an ingredient rarely seen in the dish can also be found. They are blood clams, mostly exported to Japan. The shellfish is now being used as an essential ingredient in seafood meal kits that have been newly developed by Korea's National Institute of Fishery Science. Officials say the meal kit provides an alternative way to consume the shellfish domestically.
This is the first time they've been eaten this way. Consumers will love it if we continue to see these developments.
Alongside the pasta meal kit, the agency has also come up with an Italian seafood dish called acqua pazza using rockfish. Not to mention, another new product titled herb butter filet uses red sea bream as the main ingredient. The recipes are an end product of collaborations between professors, industry experts, and agency officials. Having realized the meal kit industry's potential amid the pandemic era, they joined forces to explore new ways to boost consumption of local seafood.
There seem to be limited opportunities for people cooking with seafood to focus on developing new dishes.
Additionally, the agency is currently in the process of developing a new packaging technique that can keep seafood fresh while being delivered. Jo Sung-min, Arirang News.
Mild autumn weather with warm daytime temperatures will take over this weekend. Under partly cloudy skies, highs will hover around 22 to 24 degrees Celsius in Seoul. Conditions will be perfect for outdoor activities as air quality will stand in the normal to good category. However, on Sunday night, a blast of frigid air is set to descend into the nation. By next week, temperatures will drop significantly close to what we see in early winter. Make sure to enjoy the last bit of mild weather this weekend. As we get deeper into the month of October, the leaves on the trees will continue to change their colors. Most of the mountains across Gangwon-do province have already started to show their first autumn leaves. On top of that, Sobaeksan Mountain in Chungcheong-do province has also begun its autumn foliage. And morning lows in Seoul and Gwangju will be starting off at 13 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul and Busan will be reaching 24. Daejeon, Daegu, and Gyeongju will all be topping out at 23 degrees. Sunny skies will frequently appear in the forecast next week, but conditions will get much colder. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.
A global network representing Korea. Arirang TV.